Good evening for the very first time tonight, and welcome to all of you to the Burbank City Council meeting of February 13th. Right now, we're going to invite Pastor Armand Daviton of Media City Church to the podium to lead us in tonight's invocation and flag salute. If everybody will please stand and remain standing through the flag salute.
Thank you very much for having me tonight. This is my honor to lead this invocation. Please join me. Gracious Father, we are thankful for this evening that we all came together to do our duties, what has given from you, and we want ask you to grant all of us grace to do what we do with a great wisdom, with great love, patience, that others can see the fruit of the work we do and be grateful to you. As we came together, we ask you to grant your wisdom to every member and every person who is involved in making decisions, that those decisions may be maybe create a great future for coming generation. Thank you. Now, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and mercy for all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I will call upon the city clerk. Oh boy. Do you want one mic off, or that's just my mic? Okay. I want to call upon the city clerk to call the roll, but she's not here. So when that happens, we call upon the assistant city clerk to call the roll.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Councilmember Fritos?
Happy early Valentine's Day. Happy to be here.
You as well. Councilmember Springer?
Here.
Councilmember Talamontes?
Present.
Vice Mayor Ghivoletti?
Here.
Mayor Rogers?
Present.
Perfect.
Every week she asks, like we're not sitting right here in front of her. All right. Tonight's meeting will be adjourned in memory of Charles Chuck Johnson. Chuck Johnson passed away peacefully at home January 7th, 2018, at the age of 97, with his wife Nancy by his side. Chuck was born in Floyd, Iowa, to Minnie Mae and Charles Johnson on September 3rd, 1920. The start of his third year at the University of Iowa, he was recruited by a company called Lockheed to come to Burbank, California, and work in aerospace. Lockheed's enticement of 55 cents an hour, when compared to the 15 cents an hour for his job in Iowa, brought him quickly to sunny Southern California. And we've always thought it was the schools and the neighborhoods and the people, and the man came for 55 cents an hour. Chuck was drafted into the Army in 1944 and commissioned a lieutenant. He was sent to Japan at the end of World War II. Following discharge from the Army, Chuck worked in a number of different areas at Lockheed. It was believed Chuck had the longest tenure of any employee at Lockheed, with 57 years prior to his retirement in 1999. And we were talking earlier, trying to think about any among us who even has a chance of getting close to a record and a career like that. And there isn't one of us. A couple of us aren't that old. Okay, one of us. Chuck was honored by the Burbank City Council in September 19th, 2017 for his 30 years of service on the Public Service Building and Fire Codes Commission. He was a member of Burbank Noon Kiwanis and enjoyed singing in the chancel choir at First United Methodist Church. Trips to Europe, Spain, China, Canada, Mexico, and Hawaii provided many wonderful experiences for Chuck and Nancy. Chuck is survived by his wife, Nancy, son Douglas Johnson, with Rebecca, stepchildren Michael Black, Diane, Debbie Corfrey, Tim Black, and Susan Pender, as well as 10 grandchildren. And I'm still working on getting one. The Burbank City Council expresses their deepest sympathies to the family and all who knew Chuck Johnson. Chuck was a true inspiration and leaves a legacy of passionate service to the community. And as a council, all 5 of us send our condolences. I understand we have some of Chuck Johnson's family. There aren't nearly enough grandchildren here for starters, for this to be all of them. But I just want to thank you for being here this evening. Thank you for allowing us this honor. What a remarkable man. I mean, one line after another is surprising. From 57 years at the same career, 99 years that he lived, 10 grandchildren, of which I'm especially jealous. So thank you. Thank you for being here. All right, we have now 2 announcements. If you use the LA Metro Rail or bus system, you will be happy to know that the Burbank Public Library has partnered with Metro to sell and reload tap cards. This service is now available at all locations during regular library hours, and I've actually heard a lot of requests for this over the last 3 years or so. You can get new tap cards for $2 and add fare to existing cards. For more information, contact your library or visit burbanklibrary.org or tap2go.net. Tap2go.net. Finally, the last announcement is a simple one that the city facilities will be closed on Monday, February 19, for President's Day. The City Council will be dark on Tuesday, February 20th, and we will reconvene on Tuesday, February 27th in the council chambers. That means we're taking a day off next week. There won't be a meeting. City manager's report. Do you have anything to report this evening?
No, sir.
Okay. I'd like to ask the city attorney if she would be kind enough to report on this evening's closed session meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, members of the public, and staff. Council had closed session earlier this evening concerning conference with labor negotiator under Government Code Section 54-957.6. The agency negotiator was the Management Services Director concerning Burbank Police Officers Association and Burbank Firefighters Association.
Thank you. Okay, now this is the time for our general public comment. You can address the council on any matter concerning city business or may choose to use the first period of public comment, this one, to address an agendized report further up in the agenda. But you will not be able to speak both at this first comment period and at that comment period that accompanies the report you might be interested in. Present a yellow card to the city clerk if you wish to speak. Please don't delay in submitting your cards. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. And the names on the first two, Lauren Ryan and Nicole Howell. And for the two of you, I'm afraid it'll be 3 minutes. I can't do 6 unless you were speaking separately. And following them is Jenny Deal.
Hi, I'm Nicole Howell.
And I'm Lauren Ryan. We're from Burbank High School, and we're here tonight to bring awareness of a campaign that we're currently involved in. So basically, we were nominated to be delegates of the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society through Burbank High School and by our ASB advisor, Ms. Miller. And what it is that it's a 7-week fundraising competition amongst 14 other Southern California schools, and we're trying to fundraise the most money to stimulate research for blood cancers.
So our goal is $50,000, which is if we raise $50,000, we get a research grant in honor of anyone we choose. And so going through this campaign, we have two very dear to our heart that we'd like to honor with the research grant. One is Lauren's father, who passed away from lymphoma, in 2009, and my father, who was diagnosed with stage 3 colon cancer in March of last year. And so we're coming here tonight to present to you just information to let you know how we're involved and how we've been doing so far, since we are representing the city of Burbank. And we're also asking for your personal support, the city's support, and if any of you have any contacts of businesses or local events that would like to help us fundraise, we ask that you consider sharing that information with us. We have invitations for all of you to our first event, which is this Sunday, and we have packets of personal letters that we've written for you as well.
That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next is Jenny Deal. And by the way, the council will address you after we're finished with all of the speakers. It's only 3 now. Yeah, I apologize for interrupting you as you came up.
That's okay.
And following
That's
you
okay.
will be Michael Matsuda.
All right. Oh, good evening, Mayor and members of council. My name is Jenny Deal, and I'm an ambassador to the Martial Arts History Museum here in Burbank. The Martial Arts History Museum is now celebrating its 19th year here in Burbank and has continued to be an integral part of the Burbank community. It is one of the 2 permanent culture facilities in the entire city of Burbank. It has been listed many times at the #1 place for things to do in Burbank. It is the only full operational and 4-star rated museum in Burbank. Each year, the museum hosts their Dragon Fest convention. It is considered the biggest martial arts convention on the West Coast and is quickly becoming the next Comic-Con for the martial arts community. Dragon Fest, now in its 14th year, has relocated from Glendale to Burbank. Yay for Burbank. We hosted it last year at the Marriott, and this year we will host the event at the Pickwick Gardens Convention Center. This event brings in over 2,000 visitors per year, and this year we should be at 3,000 guests. Last year the event brought in 50 hotel room stays, as documented from the City Hotel website link. This does not include visitors who choose other hotels. This year, Dragon Fest will be a 2-day event Plus, we will be hosting 150 vendors, 50 more than last year. As a result, we predict there will be at least 150 hotel rooms purchased. To enlighten guests about Asian cultural and history, Dragon Fest hosts cultural performances all day on stage at Dragon Fest. We are asking the city's support in sponsoring our cultural performances. It costs the museum, a nonprofit organization, $2,000 to pay for the performers. The county supervisor, Catherine Barger, gives us $1,000 each year. We are asking for your support of $1,000 as well as to open doors to cultural and tradition. Thank you, and I'd also like to invite Michael Matsuda up here now. He's going to give a short presentation. Thank you.
So the next speaker is Michael Matsuda.
Greetings, Council. How are you doing today?
Just fine.
I know we only have 3 minutes, so we prepared a video of last year's Dragon Fest, so please enjoy.
Damn. One more time. In slow motion, Felix. Okay. Yep. That's all I got. That's all I got. That's it. Hey, what's going on? Chewy Martinez for the L Rate Network, and here we are at the 13th annual Dragon Fest. We're inside. We're going to talk to some martial arts superstars and some fans. Let's do this. 13 years of this, man. How does it feel?
Yeah, I love it. You know, 13 years. What a big milestone. I'm very proud to have Dragon Fest as part of the Martial Arts History Museum. It's a good thing to talk about Asian culture and tradition.
Primary sponsors of the 13th annual Dragon Fest, Outright Network, Mr. Skip Jason.
We've always pushed martial arts and action and leading with entertainment because behind that we're sharing culture. Thank you very
much. I wasn't expecting that. I just thought it was a beautiful dance with cups of water. All right, shout out to the Philippines. I just did the Tininkling dance. A lot of the Filipino dances are hidden dances, but with like martial arts roots. It's crazy, it's dope. What's been so far the highlight for you guys?
We've met a lot of famous people, meeting Michael Jai White. That was amazing, yeah.
Brad, conventions like these, why are these so important?
I owe a lot to martial arts, so this is a no-brainer for me to be here.
When did you know, like, yo, I'm gonna do martial arts?
Since the first time I saw a Kung Fu movie.
Art Camacho, how you doing, sir?
Really good, thank you.
You're from the barrio, being Mexican. How does that influence your style?
Growing up, I got my butt kicked a lot.
Me too.
And so one thing that I try to do is make it real. You have to have intent. You have to believe that you're trying to hit the guy.
I'm an original turtle. I did all the action for Mike on the second movie, Secret of the Ooze. Fighting, martial arts, gymnastics, combat cold cuts.
What kind of training does it take to do it in a costume?
I have an extensive martial arts background. 3 catch and
And
what really got me inspired was Bruce Lee.
Thank you guys very much, and they should have received a flyer already, correct?
Yes.
Thank you guys very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
One last card, Jane Harrison. Good evening.
Hello. I live a block above Burbank High School. For many years, the residents of the 700 block of North 5th Street have had problems with a gang of teenage boys who have created chaos. There are 2 to 20 of them at any given time. They have parked on the street during the school year, late night, weekends, and year-round. The teenage boys speed up and down the street. They have altered the mufflers and horns on their cars. They are responsible for numerous traffic accidents. They dump trash, urinate on the properties, smoke cigarettes, pot, and hookahs, have had sex with a live and a plastic female. 4 to 5 boys have threatened violence against the residents numerous times, and they have beat up another high school kid. It happened about 2 years ago. A petition was sent around a few years ago for permit parking to get these teenagers off our block. The permit parking signs went up. The boys are still a problem about 365 days a year. The city wants to charge the residents to park on their own street now. We got notices for fees for the permit parking. This is unfair, nor do we get the peace and quiet the parking petition originally intended. In the 600 block southward, the church people take up all the parking on Sundays, some Saturdays, and many evenings. This creates usage problems for the residents who have no choice but to park on 5th Street. In addition, the residents on Harvard use our block for overnight parking. To add insult to the situation, the Harvard residents and the church people get free parking, while the 5th Street residents will not. Only the residents suffer with the new fees to be imposed. This is discriminatory and it is outrageous. The residents wish to continue getting free permit parking hangers even though we do not receive enough of them. My neighbors and myself want the new parking fees rescinded. We want free parking on the block for the residents. To this fact, I brought a petition signed by the residents on the block. Thank you for your time, and I hope you will take my comments seriously and correct this egregious situation. Jane Harrison. And you may have a copy of my notes, and here's a permit form that I got, signed by all the neighbors, except for 2 that were on vacation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any comments or questions?
We address all of the speakers and comments at the end of everyone talking. So if you could just wait a minute or 2, I think we're at the end of the speakers, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. And are there any other cards down there? Well, then that will actually do it. Let me ask my colleagues who'd like to go first here in response to public general comment. Well, somebody wants to go first. Come.
I'll go.
Okay, who wants to go second? I'll pick Ogu's. Okay, there you go.
I'd like to thank everybody for coming. Thank you, Ms. Ryan and Ms. Howell, for informing us of your event, and I'm sorry for your loss of your fathers. And thanks, Ms. Deal and Mr. Masuda. And I don't know how we go about addressing their request for help, but I'm sure you guys do. Thanks, Ms. Harrison, for the information on your neighborhood and the problems that exist, and the your thoughts about the parking permit situation. Thank you.
Next. I'll go next. Thank you. Ms.
You're welcome.
Gabalotti.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to go in reverse order. Ms. Harrison, I know that the notices went out on the permit parking. They went out citywide to every single neighborhood that is using the permit parking. It's possible that one of our staff can sit down and go over that with you. I am happy to look at your petition. My feeling is that it may be useful to see if we can get some additional, we have our officers rotate around the city. They aren't able to stay in one place for very long, but they do look at hot spots in the city, and they try to address the kind of problems that you described with the behavior of the young men. It certainly doesn't sound very pleasant.
It's not.
Yes, I so understand that. So maybe what I'll do is ask if Mr. Davis could have one of our staff sit down and talk with you a little more about the permit process, and maybe there is a way to have some officers deployed there. We don't have enough to do the whole city, but we do respond to things that are hot spots. On the fee, I'll look at the petition, but I will say that as I understand it, and I can ask staff to report back to all of us, that that fee for the permits reflects the staff time it costs to do the paperwork, review the streets, look at all the license plates, track it all down. So I know that it's an issue for folks, but it's also an issue about being equitable across the board to other neighborhoods as well. But let's see what the
I'm
staff
sorry,
can
yeah,
say.
we can't engage in a back and forth.
So let's see on the enforcement side if we can have something directed in that direction to help step up with that again. To Jenny Deal and to Michael Matsuda, oh my gosh, this is so cool. I really am looking forward to the August thing, and we would do this by asking the staff to bring it back to council for a discussion as to whether or not we even have the funds to support their request. And maybe there's another way it can be gotten, but that would be our procedure. So short of that, I'll see if others would like something to come back. That's how we do it. And Mr. Matsuda and Jenny Deal, you know, we have budget issues, so we're not in a big spending mood these days, even for small amounts, but let's see where it goes. And then to Nicole and Lauren, wow, that's really challenging and a painful situation in your own lives, and I'm sure that your siblings and your moms are very proud of you, as I am, for coming and setting the bar so high. So I look forward to getting the referral information that you have for council tonight. Good for you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Talamontes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also like to thank everyone for coming down and spending some of your time with us and sharing your concerns and ideas. Ms. Harrison, pretty much Vice Mayor Gabaletti already outlined what's required. So hopefully one of the staff members could sit down with you if they haven't already in regards to what the permit process is and all that. So they could explain it a lot better than we can. Jenny Deal and Michael Matsuda, thank you very much. That was a very exciting video. Yeah, that's great. It's great that it's coming to Burbank. Thank you for doing that as well. You know, I would recommend maybe you going to the TBIT, the tourism.
That's a good idea.
You know, going for them and asking them for some monies because it affects them locally. Those are the TBIT is comprised of members, excuse me, of hotel owners. So that would be the staff, I'm sure, could tie you in that and let you know when the next meeting might be, or just your request could be sent to them. So staff would give you more information on that.
And they have a better budget than we do.
They definitely do.
As far as the fundraising, Nicole and Lauren, thank you for coming here. We've got some of your information. Yeah, I'll post it on my Facebook page. You know, I'll just do as much outreach as possible, and maybe you can get some monies coming your way from that. 50,000. It's a pretty high bar, but if you stay focused and maintain the can-do attitude, you can make it. So thank you for coming tonight.
Mr. Frutos.
I want to thank everybody for coming down this evening, especially the two young ladies. It's great to see younger people be engaged and be passionate about something that they really believe in. So I really appreciate what you're doing. And I'll just echo, not in discussion, but my colleagues have already addressed some of the issues. And thank you, everybody, please, for coming down tonight. Thank you very much.
I'm sorry? Well, I'm going to go first. because this one's hard for me to even start. Ms. Ryan and Ms. Howell. Hepatocellular carcinoma here, stage 4. And what makes me very happy is to see how passionate, excited, fun you can be while having been, having gone through this tragedy and horror that it can be, that it is for most, really. So, yeah, you're going to see a check from me. I really only know a lot of very cheap people, but I will bend some arms, and believe me, the "I have cancer" thing, I've milked that to death. So they just, that doesn't always help, but I will try, and set you up. I'll look for some companies interested in being associated. Great effort, and really, just as a dad, it makes me so happy to see you guys back and recovered and doing something this productive. And you probably, still watch something on television or on the computer once in a while, and you still giggle and laugh among your friends, and it's important to be reminded that life will go on, and it can be happy no matter what you've gone through up until then. So thank you for that reminder that I probably shouldn't have needed. With regards, I have never seen such rapt attention to the monitors as I did through that video by the council members, because everybody was just zoned out on TV. And I think Councilmember Talamontes hit on a great idea for you to contact the TBID, the folks who they take a piece of money out of the charge we give to people staying in hotel rooms. They take a little piece of that and use it to spend on bringing more people. And yeah, it just sounds like a match made in heaven if you can make a presentation similar to the one you did to us. And they're actually allowed to spend some of it under certain legal parameters. And finally, Ms. Harrison, if a staffer hasn't at least slipped you their card and said they'll have they'll be available for a meeting or they'll be glad to talk to you, that'll happen before you get out this door. Well, not the appointment, but handing you the card and saying, we'll talk tomorrow, and so people will be paying attention to this right away. It's a bit above our heads in that we don't patrol the streets. We don't, we're not out there actively. But I got to tell you, in all the years, I've been listening to various public comments, I've heard, everybody says they leave needles outside my house. And everybody says they leave used condoms outside. Nobody has ever said they're using plastic sex dolls outside. So you came up with an absolute first, or I'm sorry, one of your inadvertent guests did. So that's a new one, and I think it'll warrant some attention from staff. Okay, so thank you very much, and I'm sorry also about the function of this meeting, the way it works, where you get a chance to talk to us, generally uninterrupted, and then we get a chance to respond generally uninterrupted, but we don't have a back and forth calm discussion time in between. So I apologize for that reality. And Ms. Springer said she had one more comment to make.
No, I was wondering if maybe we could ask our police department to step up patrol there during the problem times, because residents apparently have been threatened with violence. And the sex dolls, that's a little disturbing. It would disturb me in my neighborhood. So may we do that? Get our police department during the...
That's what staff will do by getting her card.
Thank you. Thanks.
Okay, so thank you. Thank you for coming tonight. Now we're going to move on to the consent calendar, which includes items L1 and L2. They can be enacted in one motion. However, if any items get pulled, it will have to wait until the end of all the other reports this evening before it's addressed. Can I call upon the city clerk, please? I'm sorry, the assistant city clerk, to please read the consent calendar. Did you practice for this part?
I did.
Okay, good for you.
Item number 1, City Council member minutes. Approval of the City Council minutes of the regular minutes of January 9, January 30, and February 6, 2018, and the joint meeting of January 23rd, 2018, and the dark meeting of January 16, 2018. Item L2, a resolution of the Council of the City of Burbank extending the local emergency fire. Resolution of the Council of the City of Burbank extending the local emergency. And that's it.
Okay, thank you. Is there a motion on the consent? Is there a second?
Second.
You have your motion and your second.
Councilmember Talamontes?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gavaletti?
Yes.
Councilmember Frutos?
Yes.
Councilmember Springer?
Yes.
Mayor Rogers?
Yes. Okay, our first report to the council will be from our city clerk. After staff's presentation, council will proceed with public comment. Speakers will then have their 3 minutes to speak on that item at the conclusion. At the conclusion of the oral presentation from staff. And as long as you have not spoken on that item earlier. No one did. I'm sorry, who's this first report coming from?
That would be me.
Hello. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Present away.
Okay. This is an appointment of a member to the Civil Service Board to fill a vacancy ending on July 31st, 2018. On January 2nd, 2018, the City Clerk's Office began advertising and accepting applications for the vacancy on the Civil Service Board created by the resignation of Member Noss. In order to obtain qualified candidates, a notice of vacancy was advertised through the following: the city's website, City Council meeting announcements, all social media utilized by the City Clerk's Office, press release sent to the Burbank Leader, notices posted on the City Hall bulletin board, the TheBurbankChannel, community groups, and organizations. The deadline to submit applications to the City Clerk's Office for the vacancies was Thursday, February 1st, 2018 at 5 p.m. The City Clerk's Office received one application for the Civil Service Board. Steve Bogahomian, the application is attached to your staff report, and we're ready to take the vote if you are. So the one applicant is Steve Bogahomian.
I think we take public comment first.
Okay, we don't have any.
Yeah, if that's the end of your presentation,
That is the
and
end of
then
my
comes the vote, then we would have a public comment between the two. If there's anyone who wishes to comment, hurry. Okay, no one's coming up with a card. And closed. All right, that's a staffer, so I'm not really shutting somebody out who just walked in. We can move on to the vote.
Okay. Steve Bagahomian is the one applicant that we received an application from. So I'll take your vote.
You want just the hands up? Or
just the hands up?
Acclamation?
Yeah, affirmation?
Yeah,
or
why don't we just do that?
Okay.
I would, without
would be
objection,
fine.
I would move that we go ahead and do that.
I'd support that. Okay. Elected by acclamation.
Okay.
Excellent.
Huzzah! I think you have to yell a couple of huzzahs when you do an acclamation.
Congratulations.
Okay. All right. Pardon me for just a moment here. I'm sorry? 11. Oh, these things get stuck every time. Why do I eat them? Okay, will the Community Development Department please present the next report, item 3. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor Rogers, members of City Council. My name is Hannah Wu. I'm an associate planner with the Transportation Division here with the Community Development Department. The purpose of this item for City Council tonight is to consider adopting a proposed resolution to accept a Caltrans Sustainable Communities grant for a City of Burbank Complete Streets plan in the amount of $519,000 and $519,228 with a 12% local city match to be provided by Measure R Local Return. So no general fund dollars will be spent on the development of this plan. The grant application process for this citywide Complete Streets plan was a collaborative effort with the Public Works Department. The goals of Complete Streets are to improve safety and connectivity for all roadway users, improve first mile and last mile connections, improve active transportation connectivity, improve health, equity, economic vitality, and sustainability. This also will help to fulfill Burbank 2035 General Plan land use and mobility elements. It will also help to fulfill the California State Assembly Bill AB 1358, which is the Complete Streets Act of 2008. This requires cities and counties to identify how to plan and develop a well-balanced, connected, safe, and convenient multimodal transportation network. This plan will prioritize people over cars and safety over speed. I'll walk you through a couple conceptual designs of what this Complete Streets plan will look like. So here we see a design of a street that accommodates many different modes. You can see here that there is dedicated lanes for bus only while maintaining vehicle travel lanes, parking lanes, as well as bicycle lanes, and has wide sidewalks for pedestrians, as well as amenities such as street furniture, bicycle parking, and landscaping. This is another example of what a complete street could look like. Here we have a center median which provides shorter crossing distances to provide safe crossings, as well as bioswales which provide green infrastructure elements for stormwater infiltration, as well as ADA paths of travel. And here we can also see that there's street furniture and activation of the sidewalk for local businesses. Here's a close-up of the sidewalk and how there can be different zones for different uses. So here again we see activation of local businesses using the sidewalk, a pedestrian-only zone, area for street furniture, accommodations for bicycles, and as well as street furniture and lighting. This is a local, regional example of a complete street project that's currently under construction in Los Angeles called My Figueroa. So here we can kind of envision what downtown Burbank could possibly look like. It has high visibility crosswalks, bicycle lanes, low vehicular speeds, as well as green infrastructure as well, such as landscaping and bioswales. So throughout Burbank, we see elements of complete streets throughout our city today. An example of this is bioswales that currently exist on Lake Street at BWP. Here, looking on San Fernando Boulevard in downtown Burbank, there's slower vehicular speeds, mid-block crossings for pedestrians, landscaping that provides trees and shades for pedestrians. Here's Angelino Avenue. This street reconfiguration project provided center median turn lanes, as well as maintaining vehicular travel lanes and striped bicycle lanes, and provides also ADA accommodations. With the recent First Street Village project, Council was interested in providing pedestrian and bicycle amenities, and this Complete Streets Plan would help formulate and define more comprehensive citywide guidelines. Anticipated outcomes of citywide complete streets would be for safety enhancements, community amenities, to build better neighborhoods, provide greater connectivity and mobility for all ages and abilities. This would also set up the city to be competitive for future state and federal grants. Should Council choose to adopt the proposed resolution, staff would work to execute the agreement with Caltrans, select a consultant through a competitive RFP process to assist with community outreach, data collection, and development of comprehensive design principles and concepts. Development of the plan will also be a collaborative process with Public Works. Given these benefits and having no fiscal impact on general fund money, staff recommends City Council adopt the proposed resolution. This concludes my presentation, and I'm available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Who's first here? I have one question. Oh, do you have one?
I have a question.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I can wait for you, Mayor.
No,
I'm happy.
Mayor
to
goes
no, please.
last. Mayor goes last.
I have 3 questions.
So I was very impressed that there was barely any daylight between the application and the announcement that Burbank was successful in getting a grant. And congratulations. I don't know how it was done, but excellent work. My question is it going to be site-specific, or is the intention to develop a series of standards that could be applied or modified and applied to different typical street intersections or street lengths in Burbank?
Yes, so it would be the latter. It would be a citywide study, but it would create typical applications of what that could look like, and the plan would provide recommendations and prioritize projects based on analysis. But for the application and actual implementation of those projects, it would still undergo a process where city departments that are involved would still have go through a vetting process.
And are we do you think under this study we will be able to suggest alternative standards to either what Caltrans requires or what the state of California through the vehicle code requires for the kind of amenities we're thinking of? Is it possible to identify pilot areas that would fit our local conditions?
So the Complete Streets Plan would include a lot of data collection as well as analysis and look at engineering standards and best practices to be applied to different parts of the city.
Council, I'm very interested in that because I know we've had recent communications from residents about the simplest, most recent one was, why can't we have a stop sign at a certain street? And the state rule was you can't have a stop sign, or you can't have a speed bump within 200 feet of a stop sign. I mean, there are these regulations that are developed on a statewide basis. So I am expressing an aspiration that as we go forward, we make room for whomever the successful consultant is to come up with some options that could be very Burbank specific and might not even completely comply with current state law, but we could figure out, we could look at that more deeply and in fact see if we couldn't drive new solutions to things we hadn't thought about before. So the second thing is, I'm very pleased to see that you quoted land use element policy 4.1 in its entirety, because we do have a range of users of our streets and it's important to acknowledge all of them. And I think that is really it. Last comment I'll say about Burbank, but you all know this, we have such odd intersections when the streets meet at diagonals, and then we have all this excess asphalt at these intersections. So I'm hopeful that as something that's fairly unique to Burbank, I mean, Burbank is not a complete grid, right? We have these weird cuts through the grid that create huge intersections. I look forward to some recommendations and solutions for really making those more human scale and at the same time still accommodating all the users. So thank you very much. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Yeah, and my question was essentially whether it was committed to a particular region or an aspect of a project. So same difference roughly that the council member asked for. And Council Member Talamontes, I'll get you next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for your presentation. Now, in regards to once a consultant is chosen, what's the timeline? How long do you think it'll take for this to come back to us?
So the project is anticipated to last for about 2 years. So the project can start as early as May of this year and will have to be completed before the end of February of 2020.
Those are the time restrictions that Caltrans puts on this money?
Yes, due to the grant restrictions.
Okay, I'm sorry, due to, I just didn't.
The restrictions of the grant agreement.
Okay, thank you.
Right, I see the maximum. You can't, but what do you see once the consultant is chosen? Is it going to take him 6, 8 months, a year?
At this time, I couldn't provide an exact date, but we hope to select a consultant, get that process kicked off, and then hopefully have something by early spring of next year to bring back to council.
Okay. I too was surprised when I saw the timeline of when you submitted the grant proposal to when the grant was awarded. Yeah, that's amazing to me that it was so quick. Thank you to staff for acting so rapidly on that grant. Now, part of your staff report in the second page under discussion, you have the overall objective for the citywide complete streets plan will be to, and you've got 2, 4, 6, 7 bullet points. Can you go over each bullet point and just give me a Reader's Digest version of, people may not be aware what the first mile, last mile connection means?
Yes. So I kind of went through the presentation a little quickly, but to improve first mile, last mile connections, it really is the segment of the transit trip that is from the transit stop or to and from work. So it's that last or first segment of someone's trip, which is that really critical missing gap sometimes. So that could be anything from having better bicycle infrastructure, bicycle lanes, having more pedestrian amenities so it's more comfortable for people to walk. It could be bike share. It could be many different modes or even transit. To the second bullet point, improve and identify active transportation connectivity to residential and employment areas, including establishing pedestrian connectivity standards and updates to the bicycle master plan. So active transportation is any form of non-motorized transportation. So that could include biking, walking, wheelchair users, strollers even. It's any human-powered mode. So in Burbank and as well as in the region, there is a need for connecting residential areas to employment centers. So that's a great need that we have here. And so the plan would identify how that could look like. Updates to the Bicycle Master Plan. Our Bicycle Master Plan is a little bit outdated, so this plan would take into consideration how our Bicycle Master Plan could potentially be updated and consider that as one of the multimodal modes that it looks at.
Let me just give you a little bit of my thoughts on that Bicycle Master Plan. Burbank is over 100 years old. We're not at Irvine, we're not at Santa Clarita, that were just, developed 25, 30 years ago. We're not a planned community. So it's going to be a little difficult in my mind, in this one council member's mind, to put in a lot of bicycle lanes without taking away something, right? If we were a planned community, awesome, that'd be great. That'd be the perfect solution, but we're not. So I think we just have to be responsible when it comes to thinking about bike lanes. Is it doable? Is it really going to be used? And that's just my thoughts, thinking back about Verdugo and what I've been reflecting on, going back and forth on that. But Burbank is over 100 years old, so I just wanted to say that. Thank you. Go ahead and continue.
So that might tie into the third bullet point, which is improving safety and serving all users of the city's transportation network to reprioritize projects that provide the greatest safety and mobility benefits. So that's really looking at serving all users of the roadway, as I mentioned before. The fourth bullet point, identify Green Street concepts and possible locations such as bioswales, landscaping, streetscape design elements, bulb outs, green promenades, or other sustainable stormwater infrastructure. So as we saw in the slides, for BWP, that's a really great example of how a bioswale has been implemented in this city, and we see that in other areas as well. But it's really looking at the sustainable future of how we can better prepare and build better infrastructure to stand the test of time.
No, real quick, if there's going to be a recommendation of where a bioswale can be implemented, will there be dollar signs attached to that as well?
Correct.
Okay.
So the Complete Streets Plan will also provide cost estimates, high-level cost estimates for all these different treatments that could be provided. The next bullet point is create conceptual, multimodal, typical street cross-sections and design standards. As I mentioned before, in some of the examples that we see in Burbank today, these Complete Streets elements come in either through capital improvement projects or development projects, and the Complete Streets Plan would look at the city holistically to see what the community really wants and desires and provide more comprehensive guidelines. Identify opportunities to widen sidewalks and include fully accessible curb ramp improvements at intersections and other ADA considerations. So the Complete Streets Plan would look at all modes of travel, including the consideration for having disability accessible passive travel or amenities for them as well. The last bullet point is develop sustainable, healthy, equitable, and economically vibrant livable communities. So Complete Streets Plan looks at not only street cross sections, but how the city street functions holistically and comprehensively. So this will also hopes to help improve economic vitality for businesses, as well as encouraging all modes and users. So hopefully encouraging more bicycle and pedestrian activity to encourage sustainable and healthy activities. So
great, thank you very much for that recap. I'm going to be in favor of this agenda item tonight. I'm going to be looking forward to the results and the recommendations. That'll be very interesting. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Frutos.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for your presentation. And I will also be supporting this, but I just got to ask these questions, okay? Will this be complementary as far as the study goes regarding the Golden State Specific Plan? Has we got that other study of what the future could be? Are we addressing that in this study of what the potential?
Yes, so the Complete Streets Plan will be very complementary to all the land use specific plans that are currently underway or being worked on. It also ties into the Safe Routes to School project as well. So because the Complete Streets Plan considers all users, and land use is such an important element to tie into transportation. One can't function without the other. So the specific planning efforts, such as the Golden State Specific Plan, will be a consideration of that and be complementary.
My next question is more specific toward residential. I know that this, again, I'm going to be supporting it. I'm asking, can we look at our residential neighborhoods that become secondary and third collector streets to address speeding traffic, trying to make complete streets, more storm runoff type, in other words, amenities to slow cars down. But all I hear in this grant, it's kind of geared toward business and bicycles and everything, but I want to, because I'll be watching this closely. What are your thoughts as the assistant planner working on this, dealing with, traffic calming measures with this grant study in our precious neighborhoods? Because a lot of residents are looking for us to say, hey, help me in my neighborhood to slow traffic down. My kids can't even play in my neighborhood. What will this study cover with that?
Yes, so my apologies if I touched on the business aspect too much, but the Complete Streets Plan will have a direct impact, and one of the goals would be to serve the neighborhoods. So that's one of the critical areas that the Complete Streets Plan will look at in addressing and slowing and calming traffic on those neighborhood streets that also connect to our schools.
Cool, and then the senior citizens art colony right by the IKEA. I hope you really look at that area for traffic calming measures for those seniors, because I haven't forgotten about them. And during the public outreach process, will the study be on the agenda for the Burbank Sustainability Commission, so their thoughts can be part of the study? Are you going to be able to address that with that commission?
Yes, so as part of this planning effort, community outreach will be a big component of that, and that will include community meetings, community workshops, coming to council, coming to all the boards and commissions, setting up a stakeholder task force, as well as having individual stakeholder interviews, which will include the Burbank Sustainability Commission and many others.
Thank you, Ms. Wu. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Ms. Bringer.
Thank you for your presentation, and I'd like to thank staff for applying for this grant and for doing all of the background work necessary for us to receive it. And I think the timing is just perfect, because we have the mixed-use development standards project going on right now, and we've heard from residents about the necessity of enhancing the safety at some of our intersections, especially for our elders and our disabled. And I have a question about on page 5 of your PowerPoint presentation. One of the anticipated outcomes is competitive for future state and federal grants. What exactly does that mean?
So once and if the Complete Streets Plan is adopted by council, having a plan that's really vetted through the community, supported by council, and having a lot of the analysis done, it really sets Burbank up to be competitive for these state and federal grants. They really look for that initial outreach to be done and to be vetted through the community.
So it would be maybe specific dollars for implementation?
Yes.
Great, thank you.
And Ms. Gable Luddy.
Councilmember Frutos reminded me, and I thank you, that some of our neighborhood issues might be approached with suggested new standards for traffic calming. And what I am going to ask is that you push the envelope in the RFP to have whatever consultant comes on board think about changes in current standards that we, the council, could advocate those changes to our state legislators and actually develop some more appropriate standards for the kinds of issues that we've seen in some of our neighborhoods in Burbank. And the best example I can give you is one I gave staff a week ago or so, and that was I was driving on a road, Caltrans Road, and they had little ribbons of bumps, like a corduroy road, and the sign said, you got to slow down because we have construction ahead, but it was just enough. I mean, it was tremendously, you really were aware of it. Mm-hmm. And I asked myself, why can't we do that kind of thing here in some of our neighborhoods? We have speed bumps, but maybe there's an alternative. So what I'm asking for is the best creative thinking, things that we, Mr. Kriske, Mr. Prescott, and others, and council could take to our state legislators and say, hey, we'd like to see a change so that we can be enabled to do these kind of things. The second is just a question, and that is, since Burbank is not an island and we border, how are we going to address the borders of our city in terms of matching up with the Complete Streets on the other side?
So Complete Streets is a statewide effort as well. So this Complete Streets plan, although it plans for the city of Burbank itself, having this plan underway will be able to set guidelines as well as show our neighboring cities of how they could tie into those planned or suggested infrastructure projects in the future.
So that's great. I'd like to tell you that the City of Los Angeles Urban Design Studio is reorganizing itself, and it would be just the kind of proposal that I think they would be interested in seeing, so that between North Hollywood and Burbank, for example, there's a seamless match, there's an agreement, and I know you already have relationships with them and Glendale. It seems like it would be a very good way of not only matching, but maybe even getting more funding for implementation, because cities are jointly sharing these standards. So, thank you, Mayor. I'm done.
Anyone else? Okay, I think that's all the questions. We will now go to public comment. And we have no cards. So, the public is quiet tonight. Too quiet. Where's the police officer? I just want him to keep an eye on everybody. They're very quiet. There's Paroli sneaking up the aisle on his elbows, coming toward us. All right. Then we will shall have a vote. Would someone like to make a motion on this? Mr. Talamantes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move a resolution of the Council of the City of Burbank authorizing the Community Development Director to negotiate and execute a grant agreement with the California Department of Transportation Sustainable Communities Grant for fiscal year 2017-18, except $519,228 in grant funds for a City of Burbank Complete Streets Plan and amend the fiscal year 2017-18 budget by appropriating such funds.
I'll second it.
Councilmember Talamantes?
Yes.
Councilmember Springer?
Yes.
Councilmember Fritos?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Ghiberletti?
Yes.
Mayor Rogers?
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank all of you. And thanks to the staff. And even Mr. Krisky. I'm going to... no, I'm you got it. I got to go to number 4 here. We're now going to have a presentation from Burbank Water and Power regarding the next presentation. Good evening.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council. My name is Himanshu Pandey. I have the pleasure of currently serving as your Power Resources Manager at your electric utility. I'm here tonight to ask for your approval to enter into a contract with the Southern California Public Power Authority for a 22 megawatt share of a solar project being developed out in Riverside County. That we're largely bringing this forward to you to replace an essentially a non-performing contract that we have right now. So if I can, thank you. So just to begin with just a brief history on some of the policy that the city has done with regards to renewable energy procurement. In 2007, Burbank became the first city in the nation to actually adopt a 33% by 2020 goal. In 2012, we came back and conformed that goal to California law that was passed around 2006 at the time. And just looking towards the future, even though the law was passed in 2015, we have to get to at least 50% by 2030. So this is the acquisition of renewable power is something that we've been doing and something that we have to continue to do going forward. Before we get into the residual of the presentation, I want to talk about what a REC is. It's a concept that we've talked about in the past, and we're going to talk about it probably a lot going forward, and it's kind of an esoteric concept. It stands for renewable energy credit, and it's what it stands for. It's proof of qualifying generation. So if a qualifying renewable power plant generates 1 megawatt hour of energy, 1 unit of energy, you can think of it, it generates 1 REC. And its RECs are how compliance is tracked across the West with regards to renewables programs and state mandates. This table is a little history of what Burbank has done in the past since 2005 to the present with respect to power plants and projects that we've entered into to meet our own goals and the goals required by the state. You can see it's quite a lot of history beginning in 2005, extending all the way to 2018, the proposed solar PSA. We've invested into a wide range of technologies and locations. One of the things I wanted to point out to you is in the middle of that, you see the 4 contracts that we entered into in 2011 for biomethane, which is a renewable natural gas. We use that fuel in the Magnolia power plant to generate a portion of power as renewable energy. One of those contracts is not performing, and it hasn't been performing for 2016, and that's largely why we're here. I'll explain that more, but I wanted to highlight it now. This is a graphic version of the table that you just saw. So this helps, I think, to help show you the history of how we've been layering in our different resources over time and where we need to go. I want to highlight that gray area right to the left of the red arrow, and that is essentially the contribution of the biomethane contracts that we entered into in 2011. That green area to the right of the red arrow shows the deficiency, or what we need to get to, what we need to procure essentially over time to meet at least the state's goal of 50% renewable by 2030. So I mentioned earlier that one of the contracts for biomethane is non-delivering. They're non-performing, and it's a consequence of the market forces and some of the terms of the agreement that allows the party to essentially stop deliveries. The city is not harmed, but for our compliance obligations associated with the state. But I want to highlight a few other things. All the residual contracts we have all terminate or expire at the end of 2021. And we've been looking to replace the biomethane. It's a very good source for Burbank, particularly because of the Magnolia plant, but we haven't been able to find any viable sources in California. The regulations have changed, and so the out-of-state sources that we have for the renewable fuel right now, we can no longer renew and sign up for again, unfortunately. But we are diligent, we are looking, and we are talking to folks presently about securing more biomethane in the future that's sourced from California. It's just slow going. This graphic here is really a distillation and a focus on what you've just seen in the prior to the table and the graphic you just seen. It just shows you kind of that red dot going forward, where we need to go, that top blue line, with the interim targets in the intervening years from now till 2030, where we are headed presently, the natural roll-off of our contracts, which is that dark blue line on the bottom, and then what the proposed contract that we're talking about today does to our renewable procurement efforts. So as you can see, we were positioned to be at 33% by 2020, but for the non-performing contract. We expect this proposed contract to really begin delivering towards the end of 2020 and really early 2021. So it won't help us in 2020, so we have a slight deficiency there that we intend to satisfy with short-term purchases just in 2020 to make up that gap, the compliance gap that we need to. To talk about the project that we selected, first of all, we went through Southern California Public Power Authority, which issues an annual RFP every year, a competitive bidding process. In the 2017 RFP, they received about 145 responses for different renewable energy projects and energy storage. We selected this project as the best project out of that group to meet our needs at the time going forward. So just to give you a little description of it, the SCAPA purchase is for 70 megawatts. Our share is 22 megawatts. The cities of Anaheim and Vernon are participating as well. Anaheim's at 36 megawatts and Vernon's at 12 megawatts. The solar plant is either going to, the purchase from SCAPA that we're buying from is going to be supplied by either the Desert Harvest 2 or the Maverick Solar 2 project. There are two separate power plants being developed currently. We are neutral and agnostic as to which one supplies our purchase because they both connect at the same point, they both utilize the same technology, and essentially it's the developer's choice because they're trying to develop both at the same time and have subscribers. So at the conclusion of our contracting process, they will assign one of those projects to our purchase. And we are neutral as to which one it is. The capacity factor for this, I know it's a technical term, but it's a 36.7%, which is actually quite a bit for a solar project because it is going to employ horizontal single-axis tracking, so that it will track the sun. The term of the contract is 25 years. The commercial operation date is at the end of 2020. The price that we're paying is $15.25 per rec fixed. And for comparison, the contract, the biomethane agreement that we're seeking to replace, the rec component of that contract is $31.50. So this is roughly half the cost in terms of the rec component of that purchase. Finally, of course, because it's a renewable project in California, each megawatt of energy generated will, of course, result in a rec, and those recs we have a share of. Just to give you a little idea of the location, that red dot is kind of where the Red Bluff substation is, the Southern California Edison substation, where the two projects will interconnect to. The Desert Harvest and the Maverick projects essentially are right to the right of the left of that red dot. The other one's right to the right of that dot. They're going to be essentially right there. For the folks at home, if you can't read it, that blue mass on the bottom left is a Salton Sea, and the green on the top left is Joshua Tree National Park. So you'd be able to see this driving along the 10 freeway, maybe about 60 miles past the desert communities out there. In a few years, once it gets built, of course. No? The benefits of this agreement, as I mentioned, it was secured through competitive bids. So we vetted out a lot of different contracts through SCAPA and the other participants, the other cities who participate in SCAPA, to find out which one works best for Burbank. Everyone has different needs. Everyone's resources and loads and transmission accesses are very different. This one worked very well for Burbank, Anaheim, and Vernon in particular. The project will satisfy the California RPS program requirements, so the output, the benefits that we get and pay for satisfies our compliance need. There's no additional transmission capacity that we need to dedicate to the resource. It's actually the entire, everything associated with production is put to the developer. They bear the risk completely. We have to provide no incremental ancillary services to integrate the renewables. This is things we've talked about in the past, the duck curve and the variable intermittent nature of renewable power. You have to generally supply third-party services to firm that power up. So either you do it yourself or you pay others to take care of that intermittency for you. In this particular project, we don't have to supply that. The energy is hedged. In this case, what we mean here is really the developer takes the entire production risk of the project. We are really participating as a compliance, to satisfy our compliance needs, and so we are neutral to when the project develops, generates, or doesn't generate. It will generate enough to satisfy what we need it to, and that's what we're in for. So the developer takes a risk, and we end up just paying for the RECs, and in turn, it's a very good relationship that way. Finally, as I mentioned earlier, it's substantial savings, about 50% over the contract that we're seeking to replace. So we will save a bit of money compared to what we were spending with respect to compliance needs once we enter into this contract. So that really concludes my presentation. I'm here to answer any questions you have. Let me know.
Thank you for your presentation. Just ask one question. Mm-hmm. Last year, we did not have an increase in electric rates. How does this help the average resident in Burbank keep the rates at its lowest possible cost?
Very good question. This is a very competitive contract in terms of the compliance, the cost for the REC that we're paying. And so in terms of, we have to enter into something. Either we do short-term purchases, which we expect to be quite volatile going forward, or we enter into other deals like this, other long-term contracts. I think George wants to enter.
We talked a little bit about this at the board last week. So this actually, like I said, actually is a lower cost than our existing resource. So we're still meeting our renewable goals, and what we're finding is that renewables are becoming cheaper. So we're able to maintain our rates, and Thursday what we propose to our board is to have a zero rate, rate change on the electric side again, and it's projects like this that's going to help us do that.
Thank you both. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Good evening. This is the meeting of February 13th, where we're going back to public comment following the presentation. We'll come back to council questions and comments in just a moment. Mr. Constantine Anthony.
Good evening, council. I'm sorry to interrupt. I didn't mean to stray us off the path. My comment is somewhat relevant to this issue. Last week, I didn't see your lovely faces. I was at Glendale City Council. I promise they meant nothing to me. I love you guys.
Where's our present?
They had a presentation there. Nothing was voted on, but it was a report to council about adding 240 megawatt generation to their Grayson power plant. Mostly consisting of natural gas burning. And seeing what we're doing here, I think is a great show of leadership. But as we know, pollution doesn't stop at Alameda and go, oh, I'll turn back around and head to Glendale. If there's anything that you could do either as a council or maybe individually reach out to see if they could maybe steer themselves towards more of what we're doing, buying generation from solar fields, maybe partnering with already built power plants instead of investing, I don't know what the number was, it was just astronomical amount of money into repowering their current power plant for another 15, 20, 30 years into the future. So that's where I was last week, and it troubles me to see that they're doing that, and yet we're doing such great things with our sustainable energy here. So thank you for what you're doing here today. I appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, we can go back to questions from the council or comments. Ms. Springer.
So on page 5 of your PowerPoint presentation, the 4th point requires no incremental ancillary services needed to integrate the intermittent resource. So we don't have to deal with the duck curve.
We don't have to deal with the duck. This doesn't cause, doesn't add to Burbank's duck curve. Yep.
That's great. And when will this come online?
It's the contractual commercial operation date is December 1, 2020, and it can come online earlier than that, or a little bit later. There's a window, but late 2020 is what the expected online date is.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Talamonte.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the presentation. I just had a question in regards to the comment here in the staff report where it says one of Burbank Water and Power's methane contracts has not been delivering since March 2016.
Yeah, that's the terms of that agreement allowed the utility us to withhold a certain component of the payment until we got approval from the CEC that indeed the contract and the fuel supporters met the requirements of law. That did happen. We did end up paying the developer, but the developer found the whole process the supplier found the process a little distasteful. Examined the contract itself and found that they could withhold supplies to us, which was actually, it's a little expensive resource. It's out of the money right now. So it's a benefit to us. They can withhold supplies to the Burbank without incurring liquidated damages. The terms of the agreement and the state of the market is the way it is right now allows us both basically to be neutral. They can not deliver. We don't have to then take and pay for the higher priced fuel. We can go look for other alternatives. So it's actually a mutually beneficial.
Yeah, my thought was, what recourse do we have? But apparently it sounds like by them not delivering,
it gives us the opportunity to find something at a lower cost, which we did.
Is the contract still active, or has it been null and void?
The contract is still active. It has not been. We are looking at terminating it, but we don't think the developer has any inkling to actually resupply us or begin supplying again, only because the terms of the agreement are what they are, and we would likely then wait to pay them the component of the one of the components of the fuel until after the CEC again certifies each year of delivery. So they have to then perform to the state's requirements, and we'd have to wait along with them until the state said, yes, indeed, you're okay for 2019 or 2018, and then of course we'd make that. So that alone, I believe, will keep them from.
So at the point that we signed this contract, was this a new facility being built, or an existing facility?
The fuel contracts, I believe many of them are new, some are existing. This particular one, I believe, was a new facility being built, meaning we signed up for it, that essentially allowed them to finance the project.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Anyone else? Have I got a motion on the floor then? Can I get a motion?
I'll make the motion. I'll make the motion.
Oh, you, okay. I obviously couldn't see who was talking, so.
Recommendation, approve a 25-year power sales agreement, PSA, with Southern California Public Power Authority, SCAPA, for the energy and environmental attributes from a 22-megawatt shared of a utility-scale solar power facility in Riverside County. B, authorize the general manager of Burbank Water and Power, BWP, to execute the PSA and any other ancillary documents necessary to implement the PSA. And C, grant the city manager or his designee authority to execute all authority granted to the city under the PSA.
I'll second it.
Councilmember Frutos?
Yes.
Councilmember Springer?
Yes.
Councilmember Talamontes? Vice Mayor Gabaletti?
Yes.
Mayor Rogers?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. We will now move on to report number 5, which is coming from the city manager's office, which means Erica. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor. Council, Erica DeLeon with the city manager's office. Thank you. So this evening, we are seeking council's approval for the 2018 legislative platform. The platform is a summary of locally adopted policy statements that will provide a general framework for the city's response to state and federal legislation. The purpose of this platform is to clearly outline the city's positions on priority issues and matters that will impact the city's ability to operate effectively, while still allowing flexibility to address additional legislation that may come during the legislative session. The major themes of the platform continue to provide a foundation for the priorities include that we want to preserve local legislation authority and keep seeking and maintaining state and federal funding for the city's vital projects and programs and services that make Burbank the place to live and work in. This updated platform is based on changes from 2015. All city departments, along with our legislative advocacy representatives, have provided input to make these changes. The core substance of the platform, however, has remained pretty much the same, and it's still relevant to today's legislation. Staff has made general grammatical and wording changes, as can be seen throughout Exhibit A. The changes in the wording were made primarily just to provide more clarity on the statements. Along with the changes, we also have 2 new priorities, and that's homelessness and housing. So it is recommended that City Council adopt this platform. That way we can allow to take positions on bills that align with our platform, and that way we can share it with our state, local, and federal officials. Staff will continue to also provide council with legislative updates throughout the year. Once council does adopt the platform, we will make this available on our website and also prepare the statement to be distributed to all staff, council, and our legislative officials. That concludes my presentations. I'm here for any questions. Thank you.
We have no cards. Thank you. We have a question from Ms. Emily Gable-Levy.
Thank you for your report. I want to know what we should do about the first, on page 10 of the proposed platform, the bullet point under water talks about water fix alternative 4A, and it talks about the 2 tunnels. Now we know, at least anecdotally, that there's potentially a change in the Delta project. So do we not need to modify this to bring it into line with current thinking?
There's 1 tunnel anyway.
I think that's been set aside.
So back in September 2017, council did affirm their position on the water fix. If anything has changed and council wishes to change this, we can certainly do this. But it was brought back a couple months ago.
Mr. Davis, you had a comment?
Certainly. You could or couldn't. It'd be more precise if we updated it for 1, because the project, due to funding, right, lack of it,
Or for any number.
has become 1 tunnel, effectively. So they're not pursuing 2, but it could change back to 2.
That's true.
That all it takes is 1 water district that's changing its mind, and it's back to 2. So, but you could change it to 1. It doesn't change the fact that you support it or you don't, and you supported it. You want to change it to 1? Go right ahead. It would contemporize your vote.
Do we have to specify?
You do not. You could just be silent
why go back
about
and forth to 1 or 2? Because the 1 was just a proposal that the governor threw out, thinking that would be more feasible because of the districts, the water districts.
Well, close, not quite. 1 is what was subscribed to so that there's someone to pay for it.
Right.
It wasn't,
So that's a done deal? The 1 is a done deal? Is that what I'm hearing?
Pardon?
I'm hearing that the 1 is what the governor's going with, and
Well, the governor, let's be careful. The governor is supporting 1 because that's what subscribers said they'll step up and pay for, so that he doesn't have to pay for it. So it's not on the governor's to-do list financially, right? Funding-wise? So really, it's what will subscribers step up for? And it turned out that's 1 tunnel. And so the governor said, let's do 1, because that's what water users said they would pay for.
he got the message, right?
Yeah. we really don't care. Our issue isn't more water, you know, or anything. Our issue is just clean, reliable water. Frankly, over time, less of it, we would hope. But our issue is clean and reliable water, even when that delta fails, and as you well know, it will fail. It's just which date of those levees fail.
Maybe the simpler thing to do is to footnote it and just acknowledge that the circumstances may change or they may remain, but our primary interest is clean, reliable water.
That's a great suggestion,
Yeah,
Mr. Mayor.
That's what I was
For what it's
I
worth.
would agree. Bob, any problems with that? You have an issue?
But I had an issue in September too, if you
Well,
remember.
with the water fix in
Right,
general.
and so I do support clean and reliable drinking water, but I don't support the water fix.
What we can do.
So I support everything else except for that.
What we can do is, we'll create a motion with everything else under it. We can vote for that, probably do very well in the vote. And then we'll make that tweak of asking for a footnote and vote tonight just on the water fix. And I take it I'm guessing a 4-to-1 vote on that. We'll have a 5-0 on other things and a 4-to-1 on this. If that's, everyone concur? Is that all right with everyone? What all over again? What look like I'm putting on weight, he says? Well, Jess, all right. So let's do that. Can we, how do we bifurcate? Oh, God, that's why you guys were snickering. I moved to bifurcate something. Oh, sorry.
I'll second that.
May I have just my little 2 cents?
Cent and a half.
Okay, cent half. You know, we already took an action on this. We already directed our director from our MWD that, you know, I wasn't here, but the majority of the council said we are supporting the water tunnel. So if the council majority is still solid, why are we even doing this? That's just my 2 cents, sir.
Just for the purposes of the legislative, I forget the name of it now.
Water fix. Or the platform?
Platform, thank you.
You know, but I kind of agree with Councilmember Frutos. We already took an action back in September. That's when you say you voted against it.
I'm going to look towards staff. Please go get some oars so we can just slap them over the head, or you could explain this.
One of the things you could do is take a vote, not bifurcate, take the vote and have the council members say that she's voting yes on everything, but still doesn't support that one item.
There you go.
And then you don't have to have a separate vote.
Okay. Yes.
Then I'll
Ms. Gable-Levy.
move approval of the recommended 2018 legislative platform.
Second.
Okay. Vice Mayor Gabaletti?
Yes.
Councilmember Talamontes?
Yes.
Councilmember Frutos?
Yes on all.
Councilmember Springer?
Yes on everything except for the water fix.
Thank you. And Mayor Rogers?
Yes on everything.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, this is the time that we all look forward to for council comments. Brief council comments, including reports on council committee assignments. Who would like to be going first this evening? All right. No council comments tonight? Oh, Mr. Talamontes.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. One of the things that I did among many other items, I attended the Luther Burbank Middle School Career Day this past week.
What'd you tell them to go into?
Yes, I did. Firefighting.
Oh, okay.
But it was very enjoyable going back to my alma mater, and I always look forward to every year going back there and seeing all the different changes that have happened over the years.
I felt a disturbance in the force when you were there.
Over all the many years. So anyway, that's all, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Mr. Frutos.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just, real quick, just one thing that I would want to report out is
Fire.
I went today to show my support to the Burbank firefighters as they were doing their Muscular Dystrophy Association,
boot?
Scoop of ice cream, and you
That's right.
you donate a couple bucks into the boot. And I just want to thank our firefighters of the Burbank Fire Department for their commitment. You know what? Thank you, guys. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
My apologies, Ms. Gabeletti.
It's all right. I think you all had follow-up meetings with these two young women, but Girl Scout Sarah Andrews and her friend Izzy and Sarah Andrews' father, Mr. Andrews, came in to talk to me about a potential, are considering a possible ban on polystyrene, the clamshells that are used for takeaway food. And I was very impressed by the level of research and the depth of understanding that these young women presented during the meeting. So they said they're coming back, and they will be back at council in a week or two to talk to us again about this. Thank you.
And I want to mention I've got a meeting coming up. A couple of people from the Sustainability Committee who are pushing this particular issue. But I've also come up with a member of the industry that uses them, the current materials, and frankly, I think I'll let them fight it out, and see who does well. Anything else? Okay. Now's the time for the addition of any. I'm sorry, for additional agenda items, and Ms. Springer's first.
I would like to propose a transportation study session as a future agenda item. And I think the timing is also good for that in light of the Complete Streets Plan, mixed-use development standards, Measure R, SB1, Measure M, and what the future of transportation is in Burbank. So may we have that, a future agenda item?
Not unless I get a consensus of council. Just a second, that is a huge project. So we're just, this isn't like, oh, we'll go cook that puppy up. This is going to take time and a lot of work. It's worthy, by the way, don't misunderstand me, but what you're asking for is a big project. So I really need to see a consensus of council.
I think it would help me understand the different measures, Measure R and what that will pay for, SB1 and what's left of M, what's left of R and Measure M.
That's a different ask.
Okay, well, it's all.
I'm being advised it's big enough by council that we ought to do this as one step and bring it back so then you can discuss it, talk about its merits, and we'll just bring it back.
We're getting the merits of.
Can we do that? So we'll take it as direction to bring back for first step, and then you can deliberate and discuss it.
That's good.
And that'll allow us to flesh out better what you're hoping to see, and then we'll meet your expectations better.
I think that's an excellent idea. We can narrow it or keep it really broad. Yes.
Okay. So we
you
have that.
Another? Okay, just a moment. Did you, I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last two words you just said. Okay. Yes. Number 2.
Also, a few months ago, I thought we directed maybe our airport commissioners to possibly put on their agenda the pursuit or goal for a LEED certification. And I think we had asked for LEED Gold, but I've met with some members of our community, and we're thinking that maybe to have a goal of LEED Platinum as a goal and see what we come up with. And so if we could direct our airport commissioners to have that on their agenda, a goal of LEED Platinum for the replacement terminal and the operations?
Again, not a problem. We'll agendize it for your consideration, though. That's big enough it ought to be formally agendized. Okay. I'll just say that you had asked for some direction on this before, and we followed up and asked the airport commissioners, what did you do with this? So that's going on in parallel. But we'll go ahead and agendize this for you so you can take formal action.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Or do you have any more? No. Okay. I have one. Earlier this evening, I was asked to sign off on a letter from the Office of the Mayor with regard to SB 827 from Mr. Weiner. And I would like to have a brief council discussion of this. First of all, to make sure that I have the support of the full council to sign this as mayor. I have nothing more to add than that, other than, you know, I think we'll all be equally disgusted with the proposed legislation. Yes, sir.
If I could, same as the last two, we'll put it on your agenda.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Could I ask Mr. Davis, is this time sensitive, this letter?
To my knowledge, no.
Yeah, and
I
to my
mean,
knowledge,
within reason, it's not. It needs to get done.
Because we're not meeting next week. So
2
we
weeks.
we don't come back for
Correct,
2
but
weeks.
My understanding, let me turn around and be sure I'm not
Okay.
misspeaking. Erica, do you know?
Because
or-
I know this comes down to local control, and this goes against local control.
Right.
So every organization that I'm involved in
my
has
concern
said,
is
no, we're against it.
My concern was we were going to have this dialogue, and it's not agendized. So I agree with you. I'm just struggling.
Just sign it.
Can I make one suggestion, though?
Yes.
In the past, if it's,
We have the time.
okay.
I'm told by staff we have the time, so I understand Councilor Member Talamonte's point. I could totally concur for what 2 bits it might be worth, but we have enough time. We'll get it on your agenda right away.
And I did ask that very question right off the bat, yeah. Okay. Good, because frankly, I'm more comfortable signing those as mayor when I know that the council supports whatever it is, or opposes whatever it is. We are now, if you can believe it, well, it's only 10 to 8. We could just sit here for 10 minutes or so, but let's not. We're going to adjourn this meeting in memory of Chuck Johnson, and we'll adjourn to Tuesday, February 27, 2018, in the council chamber, here at lovely 275 East Olive, for a joint meeting with the police commission. And they all bring weapons. So thank you very much. Thank you for your comments tonight. Thank you for coming. Meeting adjourned.
Happy Valentine's.